All right, I'm recording. Okay, so this is the next project we're going to do. Now, I said we are going to do the AR project, but I forgot there's a step in the middle there between this one and the AR one. So this is going to be a shorter, well, relatively short project. We call it the scavenger hunt. Okay, and what this is going to teach you guys how to do is find interesting sources for things. Number one. Learn how to use scanners, number two, and learn how to do animation and create animated GIFs, or GIFs, whichever one you prefer. Doesn't matter to me. So there's a very distinct, a very directed process here. So the first thing you're going to do, and you're going to start this just after I'm done talking here, you're going to get some raw material. So you're going to go to the library. You're going to find and check out 4 books. I hope you don't have library funds. It won't allow you to check out books. You kind of up shit creek if you do. So what you're going to do is you're going to find books that meet these criteria. And you can do anything in these areas that you want to do, okay? So a book on art or architecture. Easy enough. Find a book that you like. It's interesting. It's got lots. Remember, we're looking for pictures, graphic content. Okay, either art or architecture, whatever floats your boat. If you go down, there's 2 sections of art books in the library. One is in the basement floor, the old Corcoran collection. It's kind of self-contained, and the other one is the inns up on the 3rd or 4th floor. I can't remember, but the inn section. Okay, that'd be the art books. Browsing is always a good way to kind of do things, okay? You want a book on natural sciences from before 1950, okay? And if you look at this list, maybe, oh, sorry, I'll fix that in a second. My links didn't come through with that when I pasted the project. I'll show you a list. It's got oodles of natural sciences links, okay? Just take a science field, enter it into the library search field, find a book that's interesting. It's vintage. There's lots of good vintage books in there. And find one that you like. One book selected from the random band name generator. All you got to do is open that in a tab. You can do 2 words or 3 words, and all you got to do is click on it. You get Deserted Maze. Put that in your library search field, and take the first book that comes up. Okay. And one book that contains ornamentation or pattern samples. All right. Think about things like wallpaper, architectural ornamentation, op art, crafts like pottery, sewing, quilting. Anything with repeated patterns in it. Now you can look up, any of this stuff. If you're not sure what op art is, look up op art, and you can find a book on that. Or if you like quilting or sewing, that'd be good. Or pottery, if you like ancient works like that, look up a book on that. Find something with some patterns in it, and bring these guys back to class. Okay. So I'm gonna stop there, and I'm gonna let you guys go do this. I'm gonna give you an hour to do. Okay, so hopefully you got your raw materials here. Okay, so let's talk about what this collage is. So you're going to select at least one image from each of your sources and combine those to form a new work of art. Don't worry too much about a story, deeper meaning, or readability, so to speak. Just kind of jump in. This is meant to be kind of a process that allows you to play. Okay, to play and just kind of look for good visual juxtapositions. So look for interesting juxtapositions, implied shapes, patterns, and surprising transitions. You should import your assets by scanning and photographing. We have scanners available in here, and I'll go over that in a minute. And they'll be in the lab as well. Open hours in the lab. Okay. Now you can do some of this with your camera, but you'll get better quality on the scans, okay, and it'll be flatter. You may want to do things like scan, then print, then crumple, then scan again. Think about mixing the techniques up, okay? Let the process take over. In this work, meaning is created in the process, the juxtapositions, and the limitations, all right? So things to think about as you go through this. Images can be masks. Clone stamps cannot just hide, but can replicate. You can establish your own rules. For example, use only the 5th, 25th, and last image of a book. Okay, so play with the rules, play with the strategies. So a couple of required parameters here when you work. Now these are important because I'm gonna try and come up with a way to display these. They need to all be in the same format. So your Photoshop image must be 16 inches high by 9 inches wide at 300 DPI. I'll show you how to set that up in a second. I want you guys to try some tools you haven't used before. Don't digitally source any of your imagery. Okay, everything should come out of the scanner or the camera using books, objects, anything you can bring into this. You can bring in other things though to photograph or scan, okay? Above all, think about combining the tools we're using in new and interesting ways. Masks, adjustment layers, fill layers, brushes, blending modes, complex selections, etc. Right? Now, new for this project, for this group, for you guys are my guinea pigs this semester, right? You're going to animate a portion of that composition. So look at the elements that you have. What can those elements be doing over time? Okay, using the techniques we're going to show you today, you're going to create an animated loop. Now you can animate by pattern or object and make things move around how you see fit. Once again, this is a play assignment. You got to get in here and play. Now, this will make more sense in a little bit, but you can use a video timeline or frame animation or a combination of both, and I'll show you what those mean. So here's some examples we're going to look at here. Now, so I start with some historical collages. You know, I taught a art criticism class at one point, and you know, we talked about kind of some of the foundations of postmodern art. Okay, and one of them in the book we were studying listed Picasso and Braque and listed their primary contribution to art, not cubism, but collage. And the reason is collaging brings in elements that are not art. Okay, it brings elements from popular culture. Okay, so here we can see some images where, you know, they start using little pieces of menus or newspapers or wallpapers. They're bringing in these elements from other realms and building their art out of them. It adds lots of contexts to those, and it adds interesting juxtapositions. So you can see you can start to build up. Now, one thing I want to get out of your brain here, okay, forget about the collages you made in middle school. All right, where you have a picture of a person, a picture of, you know, things that person liked laid out around them, and some text in funny fonts. Keep these things a little more abstract, a little more non-representational, and that'll lead you into some more sophisticated things. Okay, don't be afraid to break things up. These are old Picasso Braque collages. They're combining with drawings and cutouts, text. Look here how they cut the shapes, cut an image over the shape to create these other forms, right? If you think about that in terms of what you guys know about masking, you can take a shape, mask it out into another form. There's all sorts of interesting stuff you can do. So these pieces are built up thinking about where those things come from, what happens when they're all put together. So down below I have more modern versions, relatively, but you can start to see how these kind of build up. And once again, we're dealing in kind of a surreal arena here, all right? But remember, play, experimentation. This actually is one that sort of fits a middle school collage, but this one has a little bit of an edge to it that's kind of nice, forceful. This isn't my favorite, but mixing and matching. I'll get to the ones down here that I think are actually more interesting in a second. But you can see playing with scale, playing with lines, overlaid subtle patterns, playing with color versus black and white. Now these are getting a little bit more surreal, Dada, crazy, playful. Now we're getting down into the ones that really have some pattern, some play. So if you think about what you guys know about masks and overlaying things, you can start to break things up, start to mix them, start to make them blend together in interesting ways. Okay, like this overlay of this kind of dimensional thing with a shifted version of itself on top. Okay. I like this one. It's very simple, but you know, it's kind of absurd and playful. Now, this one's an interesting thing because we have, you know, we have images, patterns, lines, overlay, things that move. You really want to see this one moving. It's kind of a nice, nice thing. Here we have a little bit of kind of straight imagery with patterns, a little more subtle, a little more playful. Here we have one that's completely broken and shattered. Overlay here. I like this one a lot. So I like ones with pattern, where the pattern reveals something else in it. Remember I said an image can be a mask, so you can use a pattern as a mask, okay, and apply those things together. I'll show you an example of that. See how this reveals a different image inside the pattern of the circles? It's a very interesting technique. So these are all just actual collages with physical materials. Okay, there's another interesting one there where the pattern kind of breaks up. Shows that space. Broken apart. Okay, so I have some student examples from last semester. Now, these ones that they did last semester were still collages. Okay, they weren't animated. So you're going to see the difference in a minute. But so these were done using the exact same set of instructions that you guys did. Okay, so we have some that, like this one plays, I think that's like the inside of the Guggenheim Museum. But we have kind of the pattern laid out. It was kind of a strange one. It has some problems, but there's some interesting stuff about it. Overlay pattern, breaking through, revealing the illustrations. This one is kind of nice. You know, you have the quote there, the upside down. Oh, she was thinking about the, what's the Metamorphosis? The famous book, Metamorphosis book. Right? I like this one a lot. Got that sort of architecture, this thing overlaid. It's kind of a strange one, a little bit of a, what is that, Mondrian up there? This one's a little bit sort of classical. This one I like a lot. It's very complex. It seems a little busy at first, but it starts to come together as you look into it. You just kind of see those patterns and see things come out of it. I think that one works nicely. This is a little more straight collage-y. She wanted to create kind of a scene, which to me is not really the best use of this. This one is nice, broken up, blending these things together with interesting masks. Same with this one as well. You can use the text in the book as well as an image, just so you know. You bring that in. There's some nice elements in this one, really creates a kind of a surreal thing. Sometimes the good ones do a mixture of kind of depth and flatness. Okay? So remember, our last project was about creating a convincing space. This is not. This is really mixing flatness with depth and however you want to kind of arrange that space. Here's one that's just about patterns. This person actually uses the due date thing in the back of the book. And this one sets a bit of a scene there. It's kind of nice the way they kind of use the flatness as the water and stuff and sort of mix those things together. Damn it. For some reason, my animated GIFs are not showing up on this. Okay, well, I'll show you an example of that, and I'll get those posted on there. I don't know why it's just not showing up. I tried 3 different ways to post them. Okay, so what's this process? All right, I'm gonna do I'll do a little demo here, and let's do. We're going to start with this one. Okay. So what I have here is a little collage made from 3 images. Actually, sorry, it's 2 images. So it doesn't take much. If we look at the layers, I have more than 3 images in here, but I'm only actually using 2 of them to make what I've started. I just did these demos while you guys were researching materials. So I'm going to build this one from scratch for you so you get an idea of what the process is to put it together. Okay, so I'm going to go to New. Here's where I can set my size, specified size, okay? So I'm going to go, I said, what did I say? 16 by 9, I think. So width should be 9, height 16. At 300 DPI, the rest of this stuff can be the same. Okay, I'm going to hit create. That's going to create that. Now, you'll notice I have a little extra space here. So we're going to introduce the timeline window in this process, all right? But first, let's get some stuff in there. Let's do this one. And I'm brought that in. I'm going to go ahead before I even do anything, transform that, rotate it around, and I'm going to grow that so it fills the frame up. Like that. Notice that made it a smart object. That's good. Let's see, I've got another one in here that is not that one. Oh, there it is. Red tree. I'm going to drop that one on there. I'll grow this one so it sort of fills that space up a little bit better. Something like that. Okay. Now, I don't even need the background. I'm just going to throw this in the trash. Simplicity is your friend in this process because it can get kind of complex. Okay. All right. So I need to open up the timeline window. Your animation is going to take form in the timeline window. Okay. So if you don't see that window, timeline, that's going to create this window right here. Okay. You're going to see in the middle there's going to be a button. If you drop down this menu, there's 2 choices on this this button here. Create video timeline and create frame animation. We're going to start with a frame animation because that'll give you maybe a little more straightforward. And I'm going to click the button, and you're going to see this makes a little thumbnail over here on the left. A frame animation is just like an old style cartoon, okay, where you have one animated cell after one animated cell after one animated cell. And then you play those cells in sequence, and it creates an animation. All right. Okay, so let's do some stuff. Well, first off, what I want to do is I want to put a mask on this pattern. You notice I moved that up to the top. The first thing I'm going to do is right-click on this layer and rasterize it. Remember, that takes it away from being a smart layer. Now, I need to make a selection. You saw what I was doing. I'm going to cut through this layer in a couple of different ways so that it plays like an animation over the top of it. Okay, so let me make a selection. Now, there's lots of ways I could do the selection. You know, the first thing you might get out the selection tools and start drawing a complex selection, and that's fine. You can do that, especially with the polygonal lasso tool. That's a little hard to keep track of. So let's think about some of the other options we have. So one of them is, besides the quick selection tool, is the magic wand tool. And if you remember, the magic wand tool selects an area of pixels that are similar, right? Up here is our thing. So we have a couple of options here. One thing you'll notice is this word here, contiguous. That means those pixels are connected to each other. They're next to each other, they're touching. If we unselect that and then select something, you're going to see that it selected all the pixels. I'm going to get out of earshot here. It selected all the pixels that are the same across the page. Now, we can change the tolerance of this to make it a little more tolerant. Let's go up to like 50. Try it again. And that started selecting a lot of them. You can kind of see that does some interesting stuff. So let me, I'm going to make a mask just by clicking on that, and you're going to get an idea of what that shows through. Pretty good, pretty interesting, all right? But there's another way that might be even a little more useful. Okay, so remember, play with these tools, whatever works the best for you. In this case, actually, the variability is kind of nice on that. It looks pretty good. But let me show you another tool of doing that. So I'm going to undo that. Deselect. I'm going to go up to the select menu and select color range. You'll notice it automatically gave me a mask here. But I have an eyedrop tool. When I click an area of the image, it gives me a mask image that says this is the part that's selected, the white, right? Remember what the mask and selections are intertwined. Now, if I hold the Shift key and select and sort of move my dropper tool around, you're going to see that mask adjusts and changes. Oops. Okay, so whenever I have one that I like, I can go ahead and say OK. You can also increase the fuzziness. Remember, the white part is going to be selected, the black part is not. So if I like it kind of like that, hit OK. That makes a selection, and then I can make a mask. All right. I probably should have duplicated it beforehand, but that's okay. I can make duplicate. I'm going to make 3 of these. Now on these 2 I want to delete the masks. Okay, because I want 3 different masks. All right, then I'll show you how to animate those. So let's go up to this one. Let's go to select color range again. And let's select, I think we did the dark ones last time, is that right? Let's select a different one, like that. Okay. Mask it. Oh wait, was that the same one? No, that's kind of interesting. Okay. Let's grab a different one on this one. Select, color range. Let's grab the top section. Okay. All right. So now I want to play these guys in sequence. Okay. I want to do something with them. You notice I have one frame over here. So remember, this is these are our layers. These are our frames of animation. So we have visibility on the layers thing, but we have time over here. You're going to see some controls down in this bottom of this window. So we have a button here that lets us to go back and forth between video timeline and frame animation. We have a looping here that has to do with how things loop. We have some play controls. We have a little in-betweener here that I can talk about later. We also have this one, which is familiar to the layer panel. If I click that, you're going to see I make more frames. Okay. Now, layers here and frames here are tied in terms of visibility. So let me show you what that means. If I click this first frame and I come over here and I turn off visibility on these layers, when we play this frame, only these two layers are visible. Okay, follow me? When I click the second one, it still shows that, but I can then add or change what's visible there. So now that one's visible there, that one's visible there, and guess what I'm going to do for this one? I'm going to make this one visible, like that. All right? So if you look at the, watch as I click, watch the layers as I click through. That one, that one, that one. Now if I click play, it animates. All right? Now this thing is playing at, I think it's at 30 frames a second. And if you look down below, there's a little thing here that says 0 seconds. That's the time between the frames. Okay? Right now they play once every 30th of a second. I can change that by just clicking down here and selecting, let's say, 0.2 seconds between them, like that. Okay? And I can change all sorts of interesting things. That's kind of nice, actually. Sort of opens up and moves. Let's mix it up a little bit. Let's go in and let's say take the properties of this. Oops. Let's invert these masks and see what happens. Well, it's kind of interesting. It's not as readable as the other one. It's kind of interesting too. So we have something that's starting to animate. All right, it's pretty straightforward. So that is the basics of frame animation. Okay, I think that's where I'm going to stop here. I'm going to go ahead and tell you you can save these as a Photoshop file, and that'll save all that animation stuff. Animation sample. Okay. If you want to see it as an animated GIF, I'm going to give you more specifics, but just for just to kind of get you thinking about it. If we go to export, we have to go to Save for Web Legacy. This is a very big file, by the way, because we're going to export this in a couple of different ways. So I need to do this down to like 15%. Looping forever. And now I have a little animated GIF, okay? Now, this isn't as complex as yours need to be. This is just an example. So that gives you a bit of a start on how to do this. Are there any questions while I'm recording so that other people can? Yeah. That's a good question. I'm going to repeat it so people can hear it. Is there a limit to how long the animation can be? No. It can be as long as you need it to be, as long as it's interesting. So I'm going to show you some, I'm going to put some examples up, and you're going to see some of them are very quick, just very fast loops that sort of flutter or kind of move quickly. Some of them have a little bit of something happen on, like a figure moving across. That may take a couple of seconds. Okay? It really depends on your idea as to what happens in there. It's a good question. Any other questions? All right. You need at least 4 of your sources of things in your thing from the books. But that doesn't mean you can't bring in some other stuff, okay? Now, I'm hoping I can find a place to show these if they turn out well on a video screen. So make sure that you're comfortable with whatever you put in there being out there for people to see. At the least, I'm going to put it up on the website, so we'll be able to see them there. So let me